Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Nexian webinar. We're going to start in about 1 minute, so just let people join. So bear with us, and we'll aim to start at 12:01. I'll keep repeating this message. Derek, you've got your hand up.
Sorry, that's not intentional. I don't know what I've just done.
So just to repeat that, we're just going to give another few seconds, and then we're going to get started.
Yeah.
Derek's already done his introduction, made his presence felt, but we'll introduce him shortly. Okay, let's get going then. So, welcome to the webinar. This is the first in a series of webinars by us at Nexian, under the banner of the legal modern workplace. The webinar today is on the need for change, and we're going to discuss with the fantastic guests that we've got what changes are required in the legal sector from a tech point of view, how strategy can be linked together, and so on and so forth, which I'll go through in a second. Yeah, the umbrella of that's over the top of this webinar series is the legal modern workplace, and it's based around a white paper that we've produced just and launched only a couple of weeks ago. If you want to click on the slide, Ben. So there's a screenshot of it. It's available on our website, and it's really my attempt. So it's quite badly written, I would suggest, maybe in certain places, but it's my attempt with the support of the team to start pointing the direction towards what a joined up technology strategy looks like for primarily SME law firms in the UK. To kind of give background, I have been in the legal sector for over 30 years now. My previous role was co-founding an IT services provider to the legal sector that was mainly focused around hosting legal applications and providing virtual desktops to law firms. We exited that in 2021, and the Nexian project is what has come next. And Nexian is all about providing law firms with the next generation of IT services. And really, the legal modern workplace is looking to see what that looks like. With trying to listen to law firms that maybe have got frustrations from an IT service point of view, an IT solution design point of view, but also on the PMS side as well. So we implement PMS, we do workflow development, we do business analysis and AI use case analysis, but also we're a traditional IT managed service provider as well. The legal modern workplace white paper is primarily built around this framework that we've created, that tries to identify the key segments that make up a joined up tech strategy. And you can see those on the screen there. And it's called the legal modern workplace because it's attempting to connect the legal software that law firms utilize and require with a practice and case management strategy and journey with the Microsoft stack that obviously we're all connected into. So it attempts to plot a way forward. So from a webinar point of view, we're looking to explore that modern workplace, discuss a segment at a time, what a joined up strategy looks like and what a journey forward looks like. With this first session focused around looking at the macro view of things. So I'm joined by two absolute legends of the legal sector. So first of all, a good friend of mine, Derek Southall, who is the founder and CEO of Hyperscale, who was obviously was so keen to join the conversation, put his hand up right at the beginning of the webinar, and he's going to be contributing by sharing his experiences and thoughts that come from all of his wide-ranging interactions with law firm leaders of all sizes within the UK, and hopefully give us that macro view as to the challenges that he feels law firms are facing and how he helps law firms navigate those challenges. And then we're also joined by the equally legendary Nigel Stott, who has got a fantastic point of view in terms of the legal tech sector in the UK, because he has operated both in-house and externally as a consultant. Currently, the CTO of the fantastic Switalski solicitors, a circa 400 employee law firm in the north of England, that are not only traditional, been around a long time and got a great reputation, but actually quite visionary in terms of how they want to use technology to the benefit of their employees and also their clients. So let's get started then. And the title. If I start with yourself, Derek, the title of the webinar is "The Need for Change." Have I been a bit presumptive in the fact that there is change? What's your view from having conversations with the law firm leaders as to where they're at with this with their technology strategy? Why is it so important to them, and how are they getting on in terms of navigating any challenges that are presenting themselves?
Yeah, thanks, Matt. I think they're having a really tough time, and particularly where it's a sort of an SME firm where there's an endless list of things to do. So, some of the challenges they're dealing with, their legacy technology isn't where it needs to be. There's been a lot of change in recent years, and just trying to catch up and keep up to date with that is hard. SaaS management is hard, and SaaS vendors, where again there'll often be changes, misalignment of roadmap, pricing challenges, etc., etc. You've got a recalibration of demand on AI, which has sort of altered the demand and the pecking order for everything. I think when you buy tech, you have to look at your value for pound, and you used to be comparing one system against an identical system. Now you're comparing about where am I going to get most value for my return, and AI is playing a big part in that now. A real desire to drive data and data strategy, which again, often people at the moment haven't been joined up. Um, Constant M&A, a number of you see the tracker I produced. There's an announcement, there's one today, announcement per day with M&A, and sometimes this brings unwelcome projects and consolidation. So, it really is, it really is endless. I think two biggies. I think people are increasingly questioning best of breed. Historically, it's been a way that particularly large law firms have gone, but people are saying, look, we've got so much going on, the multiplicity of vendors, the dealing with each vendor wants to do their own AI. How do you drive user experience? How do you drive client experience when you've got best of breed is a challenge. And the other, a blessing is Microsoft. In a way, they're doing so much and they've got so much to offer. But how do you sort of convert your strategy to leverage as much as you can from Microsoft? So, there's a whole range of issues to grapple. And I think for SME firms, there's a lot to get your head around there and a lot to get right, really, in what is a fast-moving market.
Nigel, Derek's painted a challenging picture there. That's brought a number of external factors into play. That adds to the complexity of dealing with this. You're on the front line of actually also engaging day to day with department heads with their own priorities. From a CTO point of view, is it difficult to be able to meet the demands of the law firm leaders and the great vision that Switalski's have got?
Yeah, so I guess just to go back to a couple of points that Derek raised. I mean, everything that Derek said, I broadly agree with. A couple of things that Derek mentioned was around legacy tech and technical debt. That's a massive challenge. We are working with a mixture of legacy and very innovative technologies, and quite often we need to find ways to get these technologies to talk. So that's an ongoing challenge. Another thing that Derek touched on is the pace of the change. And going back to what you were saying there, Matt, about the expectations of the law firm leaders, the heads of the department, the directors, they are being tasked more and more to up fee targets, produce more, record more chargeable time. And that obviously has an impact on technology. We need to look at innovative solutions. We need to look at ways we can support the department heads in this change. So the pace of change, the volume of change, the number of sheer requests we're getting through to support the department heads in that process is ever increasing. What I would say though is, alongside this, we've got to find a way of measuring what we do and providing that tangible ROI. It's not good enough anymore just to implement technology, put new technologies in place, and hope for the best. We've got to justify implementing these technologies in the first place, but then we've got to assess the outcome. We've got to make sure that we've got the right adoption mechanisms in place. We've got to make sure that we have metrics that allow us to assess whether that new time recording system is helping us increase that chargeable time that we're seeing coming through from the teams. So I would say, yeah, it's a very dynamic, evolving piece, and these pieces all link together as well. Off the back of that, we've also, like Derek says, we've got to look at data. How do we present data better? How do we provide data in real time? But how do we put the underlying mechanisms in place? What kind of technology and architecture do we need to support all this? So, yeah, it's an ever shifting landscape.
There's a lot going on, and Nigel, Derek pointed towards two prevailing strategies that have been in place over recent years. The one is the embracing the walled garden that a consolidator will get, an aggregator will give you, through M&A, and the other one is trying to go a bit more best of breed and kind of map your own journey. Just to talk about that market piece, Derek, you're obviously at the forefront of tracking that, and we all benefit from your M&A reports that you send out regularly to map what's going on in the market. What do you think the impact has been of the aggregators, aggressively, operating an M&A strategy in the legal tech sector?
It's yeah, it's a really tough one. I mean, you would imagine that if you had a piece of M&A announced relating to a supplier, that you could argue it could be a good thing. We're going to see more professionalization, more R&D, more strength and depth on resource, etc., etc. I'm not saying all the time, but I think from a customer perspective, many times that isn't what happens. I think what happens is they lose great people. They basically you'll get, if you like, almost like a stagnant product. You'll sometimes get the product's end of life. It doesn't move forward in the way that you would like. Many of these aggregators are also backed by private equity, and that will bring with it a pricing dynamic and a particular dynamic that goes with it. So it's really tough. I was on a call not so long ago, and we had five IT directors and CTOs of large law firms, and there was a bit of moaning about particular suppliers. And I tried to turn it around and said, look, who are the great suppliers you're getting? And many of them increasingly were saying, we favor a lot of independent suppliers, which are owner managed, because we're getting a better service. So I'm not saying there's a right or wrong answer. What I am saying is, I think if there is some M&A that happens in the market, what we need to do is ensure that there is something good for all. There is something good for the company, but there's also something good for the customer. And I think what we perhaps haven't had in some instances is that degree of balance that should have happened in the past.
You've got a take on that, Nigel, in terms of, obviously you've operated across a number of law firms from a consultancy point of view, and obviously from yourself in your in-house roles, and you've operated across a number of different practice management systems owned by different aggregators. So, what from a CTO point of view, has there been an impact? Has there been positive as well as negative?
Yeah, I would say. I mean, let's face it. Change is a constant, so there is always going to be merger and acquisition activity across the case and practice management system market. We seem to be now in an era where that is more frequent. So we just have to, in my view, accept that it is what it is, and there's only a certain level of control that we have around that. The way we've dealt with that is whenever there's been a change in the ownership of the products that we're using, I think it's really important for us to connect with the individuals in those organizations. So go to the vendor and speak to the right people to understand their business position, what their strategic roadmap is, what their long-term plans are, and form a partnership. So we currently work very, very closely with our case management system vendor. We're having ongoing discussions with them about how they're developing the product. We're feeding into that. We're getting an understanding of their business and their business model. So yeah, having those conversations and engaging with the vendors in the right way once those changes have taken place, but they are inevitable. So we just have to deal with them the best we can.
Yeah.
Does it lead to some compromises in your experience from an integrations point of view? So, in shaping your strategy, I mean, one of the key themes that I wanted to thread through this webinar is compromise, because I think no matter what strategy you take, there's compromises to be made, and we can touch upon some of those. And there's always going to be a payoff. Your interaction with using the multiple aggregators and the products they use, there's a natural compromise as to the integrations that you can pursue, and therefore at times it pushes you towards another product. Is that a fair reflection? It's at the end of the day, no matter what the strategy is, you've got to make compromises.
Yeah, I think from my view, Matt, there'll always be limitations that you come up against, and looking at integrations and other products, and I think the way we tend to handle things at Sweetelsky is we first of all understand that long-term strategic roadmap from the vendor. We understand what our own technology roadmap is. So it's important that we get out there, we speak to the departments, we look at the business strategy, and we align our technology roadmap and strategy with that. We then speak to the vendors and understand what direction they're heading in. And there's always some limitations in terms of what the vendors are looking to do and what we're seeking to do. So that's where we tend to look at other solutions that can help us evolve our strategy and integrate, for example, cloud-based technologies such as Microsoft Azure with the technologies that we're using in-house. So we've touched on AI, and we'll go into it in more detail, no doubt. But we are now starting to build out AI solutions in Microsoft Azure, where we're starting to see limitations in the internal product set that we're using.
So yeah, you're leaning on the roadmap from Microsoft, to kind of really complement. So of course there's going to be compromises on the PMS and the legal software side of things, but hopefully you can negate some of that from really leveraging the Microsoft roadmap. Would that be fair?
That's right. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Because we need platforms that we can build out. We've got to be agile. We need to be able to go off in one direction. If it doesn't work, come back, look at how we're trying to approach this, and then head off in another direction. And the agility and scalability that Microsoft platforms provide us really helps us with that kind of strategy.
Matt, just to add to that as well, I think you've got, your perfect vendor now. You'd be confident. I agree with everything Nigel says, and you'd be confident with their roadmap, and that would align very closely with what you're trying to achieve. All of that is great, and have proper support, etc. But I think what you really want to see from a vendor is a lot of flexibility on things like APIs. And some are more flexible than others. But you've got to sort of get yourself, and also the same on data. You've got vendors who are much more proprietorial about these things, and others who are completely open. I can picture one vendor now going, "Look, we're a software business. Politely, we don't want to be a data business. We don't, we're not bothered if we hold it or not or whatever. We're not trying to make money out of that, and I think that we need more and more of that sort of approach. And if you've got really great APIs, great roadmap, and actually access to your data, it's your data so you can use it in the way that Nigel's talking about with the Microsoft stack. That is just such a massive, massive bonus. And actually, it almost trumps everything else at the moment.
So we talked a little bit about the consolidator aggregator kind of journey, being in that walled garden. The way to negate some of the challenges is to have a close relationship, Nigel was pointing towards, and also, hopefully twist their arm to be more open on the API side. When you think about the best of breed, so we touched upon the best of breed strategy of the really big firms, maybe causing some challenges there, but it does seem to be coming down into the mid tier a lot more now, with newer PMSs coming to the market for that mid tier, um, allowing more open API integrations, and therefore allowing law firms to be a bit more agile in terms of choosing their supporting legal tools. Derek, can you talk a little bit about why you? This is gonna be a long question because I want to get something else that you've said to me previously in. Talk to me about why the mid tier are attracted to that. You touched upon it previously. You said something really impactful to me in the fact that quite often law firms you get a really good talented head of department in a mid-tier law firm, and they want to use technology to be able to improve internal operations and client journey, but the innovation, the drive to innovate is stifled by not being able to use best of breed tools at times. Is that one of the key drivers for the mid-tier starting to embrace best of breed a bit more than previously?
I mean, again, a very good question and multifaceted. I think fundamentally people are realize what they're trying to do is to think through capabilities. So they're almost trying to stop thinking about technology, but are thinking about all of the capabilities they need to be great. And that's driving them to sort of get certain tools. Now, in some ways, best of breed can give you that because you'll get a deep capability in particular area. So you might have a very strong documents and email management capability, say, compared with a best of breed system. But so on the one way, it does help you. On the other hand, it can hold you back because ensuring you integrate all of these things in a meaningful way is really, really hard. So we've got a lot of firms at the moment who are trying to are standing back and saying, look, the platform we have got is no longer fit for purpose for these modern times, because it's fundamentally we've worked in the same way. The systems might be different as we have done for the last 35 years. So if you think about what's the client experience of dealing with a law firm might be dealing with some rubbishy onboarding processes and being on the receiving end of email. That's not a great experience. If you look at a fee earner experience, well, how can the tools help you improve efficiency, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? So you basically, people are trying to stand back and saying, look, we need to rectify these things. We need something much better for the future. But actually, I think they're recognizing that very few things that they can buy off the shelf, whether they be best of breed or combined system, by themselves will do that. They've got to sort of really enhance this thinking to deliver it. Does that answer your question, Matt?
Yeah, and it points also towards something I can ask Nigel around in the fact that how is this, best of breed? It's, how is his team evolving internally in Switalski's? Because the more you go best of breed, the more you bring in these third party integrations. There's other tasks to be done. We so we're technology agnostic, but we're doing a lot of work around action step implementation because of the way it lets the law firms move away from virtual desktop. It's browser based, but and therefore it's got open APIs. But just had a great conversation with an IT director that's 100 plus users using Action Step this morning, and he talked about how it's affected the development of his internal team because he's now got multiple vendor relationships to work with. He's got a different consideration from a data point of view, sovereignty and security, and so therefore it's changing how his team's evolving. So, how is your team evolving? To combat all of this change that's required and potentially map a future that's a bit more best of breed focused.
Yeah, no, that's a really great question, Matt. So I think first of all, there's technology change, which means that ultimately roles are going to change within the team. We are migrating from hardware in the data center onto Microsoft Azure. That brings about requirement for a different skill set in certain parts of the team. So we've got to understand how we best upskill people and review their roles, because roles will change slightly when you move to a new platform. But essentially, I look at the internal team and I try and understand where our team is providing best value and what skills are required for that. So I think, we've started to outsource some capabilities. So, for example, we have a development team. They are an excellent team, lots of knowledge around the case management system that we use, but sometimes we need to outsource because we need more people focusing on the development work. When it comes to acquiring different skills, so for example, if we look at Power BI and the need to create Power BI dashboards and reports, we've got a question there. Do we outsource that work, or do we upskill the people internally to focus on that? If we're upskilling people internally, we're drawing them away from existing work. So I don't think there's any easy answer to it. But I think really at the core of it is, where does the internal team provide best value? And because of our knowledge of the business and how the business works, it's usually getting out there and having those conversations and understanding how technology can add value and what those solutions might look like. But if we need to tap into specific skills, then we'll consider whether that's done internally or whether we look at external third-party partners to assist with that.
Are you looking forward to the day when you don't have to manage infrastructure?
Will that day come?
I don't know. Well, yeah. I think the infrastructure will probably change, won't it? I mean, so part of the modern workplace kind of ethos is that I was a leader of a business that was focused on delivering virtual desktops and hosting applications. I want to see the death of virtual desktop, to be fair, because even though we did it really well, it was just still regularly delivers a poor user experience and complexity, no matter how well you do it. So I want to get help law firms embrace more browser-based working and so on and so forth, which in turn will help internal teams reduce the infrastructure overhead, or even the MSP, the infrastructure overhead. But you're right in the fact that it may well change to be a different type of infrastructure. So we started touching upon AI, and there's been obviously a regular conversation as to about what tooling, buy versus build from an AI point of view. Do you envisage that infrastructure shift to be more kind of AI infrastructure and data infrastructure?
Yeah, so anecdotally, Matt, what we've actually tried to do over the last couple of years is, first of all, reduce that technical debt that we were speaking about at the beginning of the webinar. So we've shifted a lot from having servers in VMware to, wherever possible, moving those into cloud-based services. So the amount of infrastructure we have to manage has steadily decreased over the last couple of years. And what we're noticing now is, with our AI requirements, we are starting to tap into software as a service. So we're using services provided by Microsoft that allow us to build out our AI solutions rather than having to provision, servers and other bits of kit internally to run that. But on top of it all, we still run this Citrix, soon to be Azure Virtual Desktop environment. And it is the legacy technology that we have in place that is still necessitating that requirement. So strategically, again, our preference is to move to those browser-based solutions. And what that does is that also aids access to the systems. It removes those barriers that our colleagues have in place, having to log into Citrix and then log into the legacy application to access their work. All feels a bit clunky and slow nowadays. So we need to move away from that.
Just to point out that any questions can be raised, I remember, I presume Derek's team has shared the Hyperscale tracker, M&A tracker, but we've also had a comment: death to VDI by 1 million cuts, and this is the thing, from a user point of view. Everything's about compromise, but the users have had to make a lot of compromise in terms of user functionality over recent years. Limitation of using Teams video, for example, in virtual desktops. And once again, I think that when we look at the overall journey, that little modern workplace journey, collaboration has got to be a real center to that. How can we get users working effectively, accessing the applications effectively, but also working effectively together? Oh, not one of Derek's team, just a fan. That shared the Hyperscale M&A tracker. Brilliant. Okay. AI, Derek, buy versus build in AI. Where does the AI piece fit into this consolidation aggregator strategy versus buy and build? and so on. What are you
Well,
seeing, hearing?
tell you what, I'll go on to that, but just dovetail a point from Nigel there, though. But and this could be a fantastic opportunity, particularly for sort of SME firms. But to be a great law firm in the past, you needed, it really depended on you having massive strength and depth and people with intellectual knowledge. So, it was normally linked to size. The great firms were normally the bigger firms. Actually, you've now got a position where you can access all of this sort of technology and everything Microsoft very easily. You've got this position where you can access the publisher's content very easily. You've got some great SaaS vendors that let you access their tools and scale, and ditto the whole thing with AI. So, what's weird for the first time in history, as I know it, you've got a three-person firm in Stoke-on-Trent or a 500 or 300 person firm in Leicester can have the same technological capability, it's the same wider capability as the biggest law firms in the world. So you start to go, this is really interesting. This is you've never really sort of seen peak, and it really then goes down to how great you are at delivering your service. So I think there's a massive opportunity here. Dovetailing that with AI, I mean, AI has given rise to, a massive prioritization of everything. Gen AI is probably one of the first things that sort of came along that really showed law firm partners and lawyers, look, digital is real. This is coming. You've got to get on board with that. We're seeing a range of approaches. I think very few firms, only some of the biggest, are trying to do their own thing. Most people are pretty much doing something with Copilot, Copilot Studio, or Azure AI, which is a key. It's probably your cheapest entry point and your most secure entry point to kick things off. You're then seeing people looking at specific products, and it could be your Harveys, the Goras, etc., which are legally specialized. We're seeing I've been persuaded these tools, I've got access to both of them at the moment, and they are very, very good. They are very capable. And I can tell you about some of the pros and cons, but I've been pretty wowed by their capability. You've got the publishers' tools, and the publishers should be doing really well because they've got 150 years of curated content. I'm hearing less gushing feedback about those products at the moment. So those broadly, and then you've got every product out there is turning themselves into an AI product and trying to charge you for it, whether or not you want it. Some of those are doing it better than others, but again, that piece is evolving. So, where will that end up? I mean, we're only going to see more of this. Um, what you've absolutely got to do is experiment, but I think most clients are trying to do something to learn, but with an acceptance that there could be an announcement tomorrow that changes everything, like we saw with the Anthropic Claude Coworker stuff the other day. So what they're trying to do is say do a 2-year piece and trying to get some long-term cost certainty, but within that, the ability to move in an agile way when they can. I think you are going to get to a point where some lawyers, I mean, I sat around a room the other day and somebody turned around and said, I now wouldn't move to a firm that didn't have Copilot or didn't have Harvey or didn't have Legora. I can see some of that coming because I think the value these tools are presenting compared with some of the legacy tech, I think we have to take that into account. So yeah, it's going to be some
Do
fascinating
you
times
think so?
ahead.
Question for both of you. Will 70% of the AI stuff just be done through Copilot anyway? So we've got all of these tools, we've got standalone legal AI tools. Obviously capabilities being plugged into to PMSs and other software applications. Will Copilot end up doing most of the heavy lifting long term, do we feel? Go on, Nigel.
Yeah, so to chip in on that one, Matt. So I think the key thing with AI, and I put AI into two camps. You have your operational AI, so drafting documents, summarizing notes, transcribing conversations, and all that good stuff. So it's very much day-to-day use. And then we've got strategic AI. Now, in my experience so far, strategic AI, which is more about process than simple solutions, usually requires at this stage something different to Copilot, which is why we've looked at Azure AI. And we've also got to remember that we still need to be efficient around our use of AI. So at what point does the use of AI need to be built into our workflows, and how does that happen, and how does that work? The solutions that I'm seeing from the vendors, so the AI solutions that are being built into the case and practice management systems, they tend to deal with very specific solutions. So, for example, it might be legal research. It might be understanding more about the matters that you're working on and getting some kind of overview. But in terms of that end-to-end workflow, that process, at this stage, I think it needs to be more than Copilot to achieve that.
Yeah, and data's obviously key. I know you're passionate about better, data modernization, Derek, to be able to get better analytics, make better decision making. Is from a data point of view. Obviously, we've seen large law firms embrace Fabric and all of the new tooling that's coming out of Microsoft. Obviously, there's a higher cost to that to be able to make better decisions and get better analytics. But will we see, even in the mid tier and the smaller side, people look to create data warehouses, centralized data, because of the multi-cloud strategy that many will take with data in pockets? Is it important that even smaller firms create a data modernization strategy to bring it together?
I think we've absolutely got to have that, particularly from the perspective of AI. And what we're seeing, interestingly, in the last couple of years, even with the big DMS vendors, we've seen a desire from some clients to actually back up a cloud-based DMS, but that's partly driven by getting data into their environment that they can then do smarter things with. I mean, just building on the last question as well. I mean, I think Copilot, Microsoft have played a canny game, and Copilot's done a really good job to date. I think the jury's completely out as to who will be the winners. And at the minute, I think Microsoft are getting quite a lot of heat from the analysts, which are saying, compared with other tools, Copilot doesn't do enough. What I can say is I've seen some absolutely terrible AI tools, and I've seen some brilliant ones, but the brilliant ones, I think, can bring about a real step change in how people practice. And seeing some of the comparisons, we've done some of the comparisons with Copilot. Copilot is good. It doesn't let you upload 10,000 documents and tabulate them and do X, Y, and Z that some of these other tools do. I've reading some of the comments, and yes, you can't rely completely on this, but when something can analyze, a 1,000-page subject access request against policies and show you the deficiencies together with hyperlinks, it's staggering, some of the time savings with these tools now. So we are just at the start of this journey. Who will win? None of us know. The tech giants are battling out. Does Copilot serve a valid function? It absolutely does, and it makes things very accessible for people.
Conscious of time, we'll probably have bring things to a close and finish things off a little bit. I'm just picking up on one of the comments on the chat that talks about, yes, data modernization is key to be able to get better analytics, but makes and this is the thing about getting the foundations in place, makes the point that firms should not waste the opportunity to lose irrelevant data and to look at your retention plans and so on, and that links to something that I don't think enough firms are over, which is the data labeling capabilities and all the other supporting functionality from Purview. When you look at, it's one thing to kind of look at the end goal of utilizing AI really effectively in a law firm, but it does rely on data, as we're discussing there. And where if you look at the roadmap of Microsoft, alongside parallel to Copilot and the Azure AI Studio roadmap and functionality growth is also Purview. And Purview, for those that don't know it, is the Microsoft tool. You get some basic functionality with probably the 365 subscription you're using now, and it's around data labeling. It's around managing the sensitivity of the data within your law firm. And we really believe that law firms need to take stock, do a role-based access control kind of analysis of data. What have they got? Who has access to it? And then label the sensitivity and so on to be able to give you that foundation for future advancements. For example, yeah, Copilot's great, but you don't want to let people loose on with Copilot across your data landscape until you know what's there and what they should have access to. So yeah, the foundations need to be in place, and from a data point of view, as well as application strategy and so on. So yeah, to bring this to a close, I suppose what should for the law firms that feel stuck, which I know there's lots of them, what should the priorities be for them in terms of trying to plot a way forward? If we go to yourself, Derek, on that first.
Yeah, it's a really good question. What are the key things? I think you've got to probably recognize that you may be entering a world where you can't do everything and try and prioritize, and then stand back and sort of look at what capabilities do you need, what have you got to be great at to excel in those areas, whether it be from client service or efficiency, and sort of just do a bit of a maturity thing as to where are you at vis-a-vis that, and then you start that journey. That'll give rise to your actions, and you can see it'll probably give rise to what you do in what order, which is going to give you the highest return. But I think, be really clear and focused on what you want to be really clear on where you're at now, and then start building the steps to take the journey from the one to the other.
For yourself, Nigel, those priorities for those law firms that are feeling a bit stuck.
Yes, similar kind of thing, but a couple of things to add there. So, definitely you need to know what your business strategy is. If you are, for example, looking at increasing your profit base, how are you going to do that? How are the departments feeding into that business strategy, and what can you do to support them from a technology viewpoint? So you need that technology roadmap. You need to know what solutions you are looking to put in place over the next 12 months to help the business meet its objectives. But what I would say is don't get into this analysis paralysis stage. It is a complex environment out there. It is getting more difficult. Things are changing faster, but at some point, we've just got to make that decision. So it might feel like sometimes you're putting in one solution that overlaps with another. You've just got to make a call on it because I think it's the pace of change that matters more, as well as understanding what does that return on investment look like?
Yeah, 100%. There's only so many pounds to go around. You've got to choose your priorities and move forward. From myself, it's urging people to try and create a joined up strategy. We've been talking about practice and case management and the supporting legal tools. We've talked about IT. You've got to have a joined up strategy and be aware of that there will be compromises. For example, maybe moving to a browser-based PMS will mean that you give up a bit of functionality of your legacy PMS, but it opens the door to browser-based work and get rid of those virtual desktops, embracing collaboration more effectively. So you've got to have a joined-up approach rather than what I see regularly is these decisions being made in isolation. The software decision and strategy is created, and then the IT comes after, or vice versa. Brilliant, superb. So some great interaction from the Q&A point of view, but please feel free to send any questions that you have as follow-ups. Derek and Nigel are both very active on LinkedIn. I'm very, very supportive of helping those in the legal sector answer some of these questions. What comes next from our point of view, I think we've got a couple of slides that just points towards the rest of the webinar series. So before I go into that, thanks Derek and thanks Nigel, absolutely fantastic contributions. You're moving forward. We've got some great guests over the series. So there we go. So there's the webinar series. We've got another 6 coming up over the next few months. When you sign up to the next one, actually, you're going to be signing up to the series. So we didn't quite have that technology live at the time of launching this one, but you're going to be able to have all of those invites come through and then just opt out of any ones that you don't think are relevant. Straight away, I'm looking at a few subjects there that we started to cover. Goodbye Citrix Hello 365. Is that a conversation that you should have? Moving away from virtual desktop. We've got Copilot versus legal focused AI tools. We've talked about that, and one that we've also threaded through this conversation is, what does that internal IT team look like, and what external help do you need? The next one is on creating a law firm management ecosystem, and that's with the brilliant Oliver Trump and also Phil Nairn. So Action Step and Exizent. And we've purposely chosen a PMS platform provider and somebody that integrates into to talk about how they feel building an ecosystem is key for law firms, to try and make that tech strategy joined up. And then finally, that white paper that I've referenced a few times is available for download. And it just attempts to say, hey, how do we join these things together and simplify the challenge of creating a tech strategy that works for everyone? So brilliant. Well done, Derek. Well done, Nigel. Thanks for joining us. And we'll hopefully see you on one of the next sessions. Cheers, guys.